kind of waiting for somebody to just walk by and like their bag and knock it down.
Knock it down, yeah.
Coffee?
Yeah. Pour.
This is the Ethiopian Yirgacheffe that I roasted that Ryan here at Fix Coffee Bar brewed up into Chemex for us.
So I'm here with my friend Joseph. We've known each other for going on
at least since I've been at St. Teresa, so 4.5, almost 5 years.
I think we met 2014 or 2015.
Yeah. Yeah, 4 going on 5 years.
Yeah, so we met because both of us were doing youth ministry at the time. You would see me from across the way at retreats or something and thought I was
I would see you at like different like connects or different youth ministry. NYC and stuff. And I remember I've told you this like very early on.
So funny
because I was there was a couple other youth ministers that would like have like a really grunge look, and it always felt so fake, forced, and it always drove me crazy. I had just come from Philadelphia, like living in Northeast Philly in an urban parish and working with kids and like white button-up collar, like salt and pepper hair and everything, and I'm like, you don't need to make yourself look cool to be able. And so I just assumed you were like one of those guys. You're trying to be like a fake, and I'm like, oh my gosh, enjoy. But then we met and then actually talked a couple times, and I was like, all right, you're not like that. You're legit and everything.
So we're here at Fix Coffee Bar, but we're actually drinking Joseph's coffee. Because
I started roasting coffee. I've been home roasting coffee since 2008. I got a little home roaster, little small thing that I could do half pound to a pound at a time when I was in seminary. And then I been roasting that, and then fast forward many years, and Victoria and I are married and having kids, and she works at the Catholic school. I work in the Catholic church, trying to figure out how to make more money. And every time we talk about different things, I would every now and then throw out like, well, I guess I could just start roasting, like selling my roasted coffee. And Victoria's like, yeah, why don't you do that? And I always thought it was the most insane idea. And she's like, was backing it up. I was like, okay. And so figured it out. Some stuff on Instagram. We'll probably put some stuff on Instagram later today. So I'm about to start the next set. So yeah, this Fix Coffee Bar is the first coffee shop in Houston that's actually first coffee shop anywhere that is carrying Zelie Beans Coffee.
Yeah, but they're actually not just using it, but also selling it.
Yes,
right?
They're selling it. So that's the special single origin offering for the month. They rotate through different roasteries, different coffees for like a special coffee. So they have the regular espresso blend that they always have on the espresso bar, and I think they do a regular drip as well. But then each month they'll have 2 special offerings. And I met the owner a couple months back, and he told me so I brought my coffee to him. He tried it. He said, yeah, the month of March, you can come to Fix Coffee Bar till the end of March, which I don't know if you'll be showing this before the end of March.
Probably later. Maybe I'll bump it sooner.
Maybe, hopefully I'll be in some other shops so that you can plug that in.
Yeah. So, we're this passion for, I actually want to talk with Joseph about a bunch of topics. I wish I could record every single one of our conversations. Joseph has a lot of opinions. But
and for some reason, Chris always gets them out.
I try to get him on his soapbox.
Have you drinking any of the coffee?
I have. It's delicious.
I mean,
it's so good. It's better than when I fix it at home.
It's really well. This you normally get the Nicaraguan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's really good, right? Are you picking any like special notes out of it? See, this is where
don't have that kind of
See, this is where it gets so nerdy. Like I like always like, and Victoria does the same thing. Like every time I brew a pot of coffee at home, I always like, I'll ask her, so how is it today? She's like, it's good. I don't know what else to say. I know like it's either good or bad.
Like, I can tell this one's different than that one, but like I don't have the palate for like the different notes, or like we'll talk about beer. Yeah, I can do that with beer, but like coffee and like wine, I don't have the palate to like pick out individual notes.
I think it's just because you have, and the thing is with beer, it's such like such a great like broad variety of beer. So you can tell very quickly, oh, this is an IPA, this is a pale ale, this is a stout. You haven't like had enough different varieties of coffee.
Yeah.
And you haven't done them side by side by side yet.
Yeah.
Like you go to a brewer, like a bar or a brewery, you can have 3 different beers side by side by side, and that's how that's how you build your palate. That's how you build that up.
Is almost because I know like with beer, in my experience, like you can have like, I'm sure there's technical terms, but like a beginning, middle, end. Like, oh, at the beginning of tasting it, taste this, but like
Totally,
finish of,
yeah.
You know, like
And there's even like
end.
the aromas, like the smell, like when it's ground, the dry beans when you grind them, like that aroma, and then like the wet ground, like when they're wet, like the aroma from that, and then like the brew, like that's why like at the beginning I was taking this and I was swirling it like wine. It just agitates it. It gives that, like, so you can get the aroma out a little bit better.
So, when did your appreciation, love for coffee start?
Well, I first started drinking coffee. I must have been like 9 or 10. People think that's hilarious, but it was like 9 or 10. And there's like one memory in my head. Like it wasn't great coffee. It was community. It was. I don't talk about this because it's just so dumb, but it's so funny.
You do it here.
This is where we're going to do it. So whenever you actually do have this channel, you can show it to like the tens of 20s of people.
Those 5 people.
Those 5 people.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom. Victoria won't. My wife won't even watch it probably. Would Erica watch them?
Oh yeah, totally.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Victoria won't. She'll probably get bored.
I'll ask her, did you watch it?
But I was like 9 or 10. Like the first memory I really have of drinking coffee, I probably drank it before this, but was at bowling alley. My mom and dad used to go bowl in a lot of leagues, and we would go with them, and they would be bowling like the league or 3 games, and my dad and mom would give us like, hey, here's $10, go play video games and stuff. And when you're like a 9, 10-year-old, $10 in video games goes like that.
Yeah.
And so like we'd be spending the rest of the time just like doing whatever. And I discovered I really like milk. And so I found like they had like the real creamers where they had to keep cold, so it was real half and half, and like in the little things. So I would like literally get a cup of coffee, like a little foam cup, and like dump like 10 of the creamers in it and everything, because I just really like the creamer. I wanted to take the creamer away, throw it back and everything. It's just like drinking half and half. Like it was delicious. That's like
when you're a kid, you're like doing the sugar packets.
No, I never did that.
I did.
Yeah. When you were a kid, did they ever do that thing where they're like you snort sugar or you snort sweet and low?
No.
They never did that in your school? My school did.
No, I mean I never did that.
But did other kids?
Yeah,
do it?
totally.
Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing? It's so dumb.
I know people would do pixie sticks.
Oh yeah.
Did I ever do that? I don't think I ever did that. Yeah, I don't think I ever did that. That was in middle school.
Anyways, it's totally. This is what always happens.
I don't think that's. I mean, I think a lot of people think like drinking coffee so early is weird because there's that myth about how it stunts your growth, which is which is a myth.
No, yeah, because I'm like 6'3".
Yeah, but
if
like
it would have stunted my growth, I would have been like 7 foot tall.
Like coffee's a.
This is
thing.
me serving you coffee just because we want to. And then after this, we're going to have the same coffee on the espresso bar.
Okay.
So I want you to try that because you'll be able to tell like drastic differences between it brewed this way and how it's brewed. It's the same coffee, just how it's brewed is different.
So change it up.
Yeah.
I mean, like when I was in Louisiana, coffee is like a big thing. It's like community. Like you sit down, someone comes over, and we fix you some coffee or something. So I was drinking.
Why do they put chicory in your coffee?
I don't know. I don't like it.
I think it's like a long-term history. I think it probably came because it was like a filler, and like they just adjusted their palates to it.
But like, and for Erica, like she's been drinking since she was like tiny. I mean, like super.
Victoria, like her
with
parents would give her
background.
a cafe con leche, which was mostly leche, just a little cafe.
Or like with her, they had the coffee and the yerba mate. I mean, that has caffeine in it. And like, you know, it's like just tradition and like part of the culture. But like,
Yeah, totally. So anyway, I drink coffee. The other next step was we would travel a lot, and my family. You and I have talked about my family, crazy family. Probably not going to get into it in this, but with the crazy family, and we would travel, we would be all together because we'd be driving all over the country, and we'd be all together, and I would just go insane.
Yeah.
So I would, but we would go to a lot of these ski resort towns and all these small towns, and I would get away from the rest of them, and I started finding the local coffee shops, and I would start trying the cappuccinos, lattes, mochas, and different things like that. So that was the next step. I was probably 14 to 16. That was that growth in more of that coffee. And then there was when I was in high school, my junior year, I met somebody that was opening, their family was opening up a coffee shop in down Tomball, and I started working there as soon as they opened a coffee shop in Tomball, the summer before my senior year, all the way through senior year, and so that's really where it kind of took off, and that's when I learned about single origin coffees.
When you're at work at the coffee shop?
Yeah, when I first had my first Kenyan AA coffee, I fell in love with it. It was the first time I was able to drink coffee black because it wasn't burnt, and it had different it didn't just taste like coffee. It had other flavors that just really were. It was great. So and then then when I was in seminary, I learned that people home roast coffee. I was like, what? And I all of a sudden dove right into researching everything I could online, and I bought the home roaster, and that's how
Did I ever tell you why I started drinking black coffee?
No, I don't think so.
So it was right when Eric and I started dating, and we went to Starbucks, and my drink was the white chocolate mocha. So I ordered that, but she orders black coffee. And from that moment on, I was I can't be ordering fruit drinks when she's drinking black coffee.
You fell into the whole sexist ideal of what it means to be man and woman. You totally fell into that.
Man and drinking fruit coffee
and how many times have we talked about breaking those barriers and everything? And you totally fell into it and everything.
But now I prefer it. I prefer I totally fell into it.
I worked at Starbucks for a while too, and I would still go to Starbucks.
About that.
But I can't drink Starbucks anymore. There's some drinks there I can have, I'll have their blonde espresso on a.
It's really good.
It's really good. Yeah. So, but
you mean just even even black?
Yeah. It's way too. It's to me the roast is way too dark for me. You don't get any of the other flavor notes. All you get their regular coffee. They do have some of their lighter roast coffees. Their blonde coffees I'm not a big fan of, but their Kenyan is a good medium roast. I like that one.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people who are more into coffee say that Starbucks basically just burns their coffee.
I don't want to say they burn it, but they definitely take it to the anytime for me the coffee whenever you see the shininess on the outside of the bean that's the oils all the and the oils are where all the coffee flavor all the flavors of the coffee are. And if when you roast it and you like that doesn't happen till the very end where the oils start coming out of the bean. If they're coming out of the bean, that means that all the flavor is not going to be in the cup. So ideally, you don't want the coffee to be all oily looking because then the flavors are not going to be in the cup.
So basically, for that to happen, you've roasted it too long.
You roast it,
Too long or too
But the
hot?
both.
Both, either
Yeah,
or.
both. Because the idea is like as the temperature rises, that's when it starts getting darker. It's like cooking anything. Like you're cooking a steak. Like you can continue like to cook. Yeah, like you want a good. You want it to like a steak. You want it to have, like good Maillard reaction on it, good like char on it, to like the caramelization of the like sugars and everything. You want the same thing in coffee. But like if you do it too much, it's just you ruin it. However, if somebody that's the only way they've ever eaten a steak, and that's all they know, like that's how they've always like done it, their experience of a good steak is like that. So they wouldn't consider it burnt. The same way with the millions of the same thing with the millions of coffee drinkers. If you like your experience of coffee is like a dark roasted coffee, it's gonna be like this type of coffee is not gonna. It's for you. It's not good coffee necessarily until like you. But the first and the same thing with like people having steaks. The first time like you've eaten like well done steaks your whole life, and the first time you have like a medium rare or like a steak or even a medium, you may kind of like it, but it may take you a couple times having it that way before you're like, oh wow, yeah, there's definitely a lot more flavors in it.
I think that's why it's always dark roasts, just because like always doing like with like the heavy, maybe like too much flavor, like Starbucks or
you're having like
anywhere you go, like any meeting, they have the coffee and it's like super dark, and so like whenever.
You know what's interesting? You don't drink. You don't like your diet's pretty regimented, right? Like you don't have like you don't eat a lot of refined sugars or processed foods.
Normally.
Yeah, you like, which is interesting because your palate should be able to detect more sugars in the coffee than the average person, because most people eat so many sugars and refined sugars that your palate is adjusted to like to find sugar in anything like fruit or anything. It has to be heightened sugar, amount of sugar. But if you don't, then your palate will detect sugars a lot easier.
Yeah, and I think that's why.
And maybe you are detecting more of you're still detecting sugars in the darker roast coffees because there's still some there. It's like not as much.
But I think in my growth of experiencing coffee, I think that's why at the beginning I didn't care for coffees that have like a lot of floral.
Oh yeah, probably not.
I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And as time went on,
too much flavor and too much.
It might have just been like a shock. You know, like what am I used to this being in the coffee?
Yeah.
But now it's like I can taste it and have more of an appreciation to it. It's not like, oh, what was that? Like,
totally.
Because then I'd be like, well, no, I'd rather a darker roast. But now, like, I guess a
floral, fruity, different things. Like sometimes there's a whole like lexicon of like the Specialty Coffee Association and World Coffee Research. All these. This is stuff that I'm still learning. Because my palate's still not developed enough. I'm still trying to develop my own palate because I grew up drinking sodas all the time. I grew up eating fast food, refined sugar. I still love sugar. I love chocolate, like the Starburst candies and stuff like that. So I'm still developing a palate to do that, like to sense the different flavors.
So what? Like I know you mentioned that in seminary people do their own home roasting, but was there anything else other than just realizing that took you from purchasing all your coffee to starting roast? Because plenty of people know that you can roast your own coffee at home.
What do you mean plenty of people know you can roast your own coffee at home? I worked in coffee for so long and I didn't know that.
Okay. So I guess what was the step? Like what was it? The excitement that you're like, I'm going to do
roasting. Like you have to. It's requires a lot more attention. Like while you're doing it, and it's heat involved and stuff like that. So maybe I don't know why. Like I just think coffee. I think people are still used to coffee being a quick thing for them. Like even at home, like you preset your coffee maker to be like you set it all right so you have it ready in the morning, or you just do it and like push a button and it gets made. People aren't used to some like coffee being something you have to wait for.
Yeah, we want things quick.
Yeah, so and I think that's like why would you put so much extra time to getting something that you just want to get right away? For me, it was like a fascination of like developing flavors, like learning more about coffee origins, learning about like getting coffee from like different parts of Africa, from Indonesia, from South America, Latin America, and like seeing like how like the different flavors come out. Like to me, that was like really exciting. So I think that's what, and I prefer like back then and still now I still prefer, for the most part, African coffees, Kenyans, Ethiopians, Burundis. I really like
because
they tend to have more floral and fruity notes to it, while like, and this is overgeneralization. It's not like there's a lot of like great coffees all over the place that can have floral, fruity flavors, but Africa, Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, they like those like the varietals and the heights and everything, process it tends to like highlight floral and fruity notes. So because I think I think that's one of the things I like about like roast mountain coffee and also trying single origin coffees. It's finding the unique coffees, finding things that taste differently. Like you drink it, like drink a cup of coffee, and it's like, oh, I wasn't expecting to taste like orange, or I wasn't expecting to taste apricot, but you do.
Which I never realized that orange in coffee is a thing. Like, I know even some like mixed drinks, like they'll
when I say orange, and when I say orange, it's not like a mixed drink. It's
I know, but you meant like from the coffee itself.
Yeah, from the coffee itself.
But I didn't even have that idea. I never would have thought of orange. Coming from
or
the coffee
apple,
itself.
or like floral, like lavender. Like you can get like really floral flavors, like lavender and stuff like that coming out. And it's really it's a shock to your system, and it's just fascinating.
Because normally you just think coffee's coffee.
Well, the thing is coffee, like, okay, so I forget what the actual numbers are, so like when you actually play this, people will probably Google it and everything and show me how wrong I am, but like wine has like hundreds of different compounds in it. Coffee has thousands of different compounds. And each one of those compounds are related to like something else. Like this compound can be found in banana. So if this compound is in here, then the flavor of banana is going to be in there, depending on how prevalent it is in the coffee.
And that has to do with like the soil. What else is
the terroir, the soil, not so. Yeah, well, what else is going by like affects the soil and stuff like that. Won't affect like the pollination and stuff as far as I know, but like the weather for that, like that harvest year, the height, like the elevation changes it. The higher elevation, usually the denser the bean, and so that creates like more concentrated flavor notes and stuff like that. That's where you can get some really like dark cherry flavors. Those are nice. Getting cherry in coffee. That's really cool. Do you want to try this as espresso now?
Yeah. Cool. So what are we drinking now?
Okay, so this is the Ethiopian, same coffee, but done on espresso.
Okay.
He dialed it in. Ryan's, the guy behind the bar, he's really good. So, you can't see it on the video, but you see there's that like brown, caramelly, dark caramelly color. That's the crema. But try the coffee. Yeah, there it is.
Wow, that's a whole different world.
Isn't it? So the idea, like, any of the flavor notes that you would have had in drip, like when you do an espresso, like if we were looking concentrated, sometimes positively, sometimes negatively. So like a single origin can be very difficult to do on an espresso because there's like if there's too much acidity, it which on a pour over cup, it tastes really good for a lot of people. But on espresso, if it's too much acidity, you don't dial it in properly, it comes across sour.
Yeah.
So
Takes over.
yeah. And then they give you a little sparkling water, a little Topo Chico here in Houston to help cleanse your palate and everything.
Okay.
Kind of help balance it out. So, and it actually, I used to never like sparkling water, but when I drink it with espresso, it's actually very good and refreshing.
Well, it's kind of cool because just doing that now kind of like lifts it.
Yeah.
And like
you kind of get it kind of brings out the flavors a little bit. But you notice, like, the thing I was really happy about when they did this on espresso, I was surprised because I wasn't expecting it to come out good on espresso. But I'm very happy with.
Why do you think it wouldn't come out good?
Because I tried it on espresso before at the coffee house that I roast at in Glendon, and we just couldn't ever get it right. But Ryan here, maybe it's the machine and the grind that he got on it, like he got it really down right.
Yeah,
and
it's like delicious.
Isn't it delicious? Like,
yeah.
It's like I normally am not like an espresso drinker. Remember before I said I love milk, I love cream.
See, I'm still not.
But the thing
lack of
is,
a better word, I'm not cultured enough. Like I couldn't tell you, I couldn't explain to you what the flavors I have on here, but it's so good.
But you notice how like if you've ever had espresso, like so many people have had espresso before, they're like, oh, it's just really strong coffee, because it's like the coffee kind of like causes you like the mouth to kind of pucker up and everything. Like you see that like naturally, like people, because the whether it's the acidity or the roast.
You filming?
Yeah.
Are you awesome?
You're fine.
No,
You're fine. One other thing you mentioned before was just like, for you, there's also like and I think you might have gone to a workshop or a retreat or something, but like there's a spiritual part of it also.
For me, for me, I think when it this is like, so it's both philosophical and spiritual. So he showed on there that the one guy, he has one bean he's working with, and he's trying to he's roasted, and they cupped it 6 different ways. Like
this guy in Ecuador.
Yeah. And this is what I've done as well. Like you take a single coffee, you roast it 6 different ways, and you're trying it like it's the same coffee 6 different ways. Same thing. It's the same objective thing. Like how you roasted it, like adjust the flavor profiles a little bit. But the other side of it is he was sharing what he tasted out of it, and which was slightly different than what the roaster had tasted out of it, because our experiences form our palate.
Yeah.
Like my palate picks up different flavors than yours, and like based off of like the flavors that you've been exposed to and everything. So we have the same cup. Objectively, it's the same thing. We can both drink out of it and have different flavor notes come out of it. This comes into the philosophical idea of objective versus subjective. Phenomenology deals with the idea that it's like the objective is true and real, but we know it through the subjective, and our subjective knowing of it can vary in how we experience it. It's not to say that everything is completely subjective, like subjectivity, like we talked about that.
Yeah, it's not relativism.
It's not relativism. It's the fact that maybe if we want somebody to see the objective thing the same way that we see it, we have to give them some of those same experiences that we had leading up to that. So I want you to be able to taste the cherry and the chocolate notes and stuff like that. I better get you some here, have some of these black cherries, eat some of these. All right, here's some dark chocolate, try some of that. Here's that before. All right, wash out your palate, try it. Then you have the
more sensitive to it.
You're seeing it, and you can experience that same subjective aspect of it. Basically, I'm if we're both looking at the same pot, and I'm looking at this angle, you're looking at that angle, we're having a different experience of that pot. I can tell you, but I can easily tell you, hey, come look at it from my angle, it looks like this. And you can come over here. That's what I'm basically dealing with your palate. So put that to theology, put that to faith. we believe as Catholics that God is objective. It's objective truth. He is truth. He is that is. Like, he doesn't change. The thing is that we're all different. We all change. So when it comes to like showing people God, like we can't just say like, oh, this is it, like this is truth and the Bible's true and the church is true. And, like if you don't accept it, you don't like, you're going to hell. Like, no, because you're like their like experience was leading up to that are totally different than yours. And in order for them to see it as truth and good, beauty, truth, and good, like you have to like give them something to help them recognize that and see that, because that's everything.
Yeah, that's what I love about our faith. Just the idea of like there is black and white. Like let's just talk about like sin. There is black and white. This is wrong. This is not. But then because of our experiences, there's gray.
Yeah, totally.
You know, like you know,
think about like children that grow up in either stricter homes or even abusive homes and stuff like that. It's not like they would be like, it wouldn't be unheard of for them to get slapped on the butt when like they did something wrong. It wouldn't be unheard of. Like, but a home that they grew up in a very like cotton candy, like there's no like we don't say no, we don't do this. For them to experience that would be extremely harsh. But that doesn't mean that like. Anyway, so but like that forms like their understanding of what's right and wrong as well.
Yeah, it makes me think of like God as Father. Well, if you had a great father growing up, then your acceptance of experiencing God as Father is probably fairly easy.
Yeah.
But if you had no father or absent father or like an abusive father, accepting God as Father super difficult. Or even like somewhere in between, like maybe like a couple people I know, like maybe everything was fine at the earlier part of their life, and they're like, yeah, God's Father, that makes sense. And then let's say like their dad's skeletons come out of the closet or something, and then that ruptures their relationship with God as Father.
Yeah, totally. It's not. So that's why like. Trying to show somebody objective truth is not always as easy as some people make it out to be. It's difficult. Now, if you can, I mean, think about the early missionaries, like early Jesuit missionaries into North America and Canada and everything. They would enter themselves into the Native American society and like learn about how they function and what they do, and then they were to relate God to how they live. When you look at some of the other missionaries that came in and immediately said, like, you think of some of the Franciscans that came to Latin and South America. They it was Spanish rule, and they created their missions, and in order to receive care and everything, you had to accept God and accept church is true, and then you got help from the missions and everything like that. Otherwise, you'd be against Spain. You're against the Spanish rule, and that they didn't enter into that to show that.
Yeah. I guess the Jesuits have been more of a incrementalism.
Yeah, and it's not that that was just like one example of like Franciscan. Like there are other Franciscan missionaries that did a great job of this, but like early Spanish Franciscans, like they came in with the Spanish army.
Yeah,
it was together. Like if you think about like what were the Spanish what was the Spanish goals like God and gold. Like in land, God, gold. Like so they would try to bring God and like the army came in together. So the missionaries and the armies came in together. Franciscans, the Jesuits, French Jesuits, they just came as missionaries. They weren't they weren't part of the government and everything.
Yeah.
But you see why I get so excited about talking about coffee, especially with other coffee people like Gary.
I think it's like the community aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's like art or comic books or movies, coffee, baking, whatever, like that top tier of people when they get together, or faith,
Well, that's the same thing.
Ministers get together and you're talking.
But you know what's so funny is I feel like there's a difference between like when you have like top tier like of faith-filled people that like love Jesus and love the church, they tend to insular themselves. When it comes to the top tier of like coffee lovers or stuff like that, they want to talk to other people about it. That's what's so frustrating about the like trying to like improve evangelization out of disciples. Like there's plenty of disciples of Jesus, just not many of them like are excited about evangelizing. But there's the disciples of coffee. Oh, you better believe they're going to tell. Or disciples of movie, like Marvel disciples. Oh, they're going to tell everyone about the latest thing. Like, oh my gosh, and they're going to share it. Like, did you? And like they don't have a problem. Like, but why is that? And that's like I don't have an answer. I'm not saying it's one thing or another. It's besides the fact that we're scared. I don't know. Because I'm not gonna like say it's one thing or another. It's just for some reason we don't do it as readily. Because the thing, people always say like, oh well, you have to teach people to be like evangelizer. You have to teach them. Like, no. Like, do they have classes on how to be an evangelizer in Marvel? Like, no. People just talk about how much they love it. They just share that. The same thing with our faith, but people aren't doing it. Like coffee, like people will go like, oh my gosh, or food. Oh my gosh, have you been to Fix Coffee Bar? They have this Ethiopian, so great, you should go there and try it.
I think it's a few things like, whenever you're looking for like volunteers, you always get the thing of like, oh, I don't know enough, or like, I don't have a degree or something. Well, it's like, that's fine, like we'll help you out, but like, do you love Christ? Awesome. That's mainly what we need, and willing to share it. Versus like, if someone falls in love with coffee or Marvel, they're just gonna dive in and naturally talk about it. And they're gonna experience it.
But the thing is, like, I still don't know it all about coffee. I'm still learning a ton more about coffee. Like, even before I got to know this much, I was still willing to talk about as much as I knew. Why are we so afraid to talk about as much as we know? Because most of the time it's just about our experience, and the same thing with everything else. It's about I had a great experience at this coffee bar. You should go try them out and try this one drink. It was amazing, or this sandwich, or whatever.
Yeah.
I think you don't have they don't even have to dive in to know a lot about the thing before they start talking and sharing about it, because they're still sharing about their experience. I think the problem is that it's still they don't know enough, because they think it's about knowledge of the faith and less about their experience of faith and experience of Jesus. I don't know enough about Jesus. I don't know enough about, no, it's not about knowing, it's about experiencing. And I remember that was the thing I talked with the youth, and I told people, it's not about what you know, it's about what you experience.
Yeah.
That's all it's about sharing. But, go therefore be my witnesses. All the ends of all the ends of be my witnesses. What does it mean to be a witness? It doesn't mean you know everything. You witness an accident. You share what you saw, where you were standing, what you were doing. You don't have to you don't have to know what type of car it was. You don't have to know that's a Ford GT and has so many horsepower. No, they don't care if you know all that. You may happen to know all that about it, and you can share the extra details, and that can inform your experience of it, but you don't have to. Same thing with witnessing Christ. You don't have to know all the details about everything to be able to witness to it.
Yeah. I think the fear has a lot to do with it, because or even intimidation, because say someone who is not, let's say, top tier coffee snob person, but they're around top tier people, they'll feel like I have nothing to say because I don't know what they're saying.
I agree.
But unless those top tier people invite them in.
Yeah, no,
And,
you're right.
you know,
you're
like,
right.
like, okay, well, you don't know what this means, so like, here's explain. You know,
Oh,
like,
and I could
allow them to
totally,
come
I
in.
could totally relate to that because ever since starting Zelie Beans, I've been trying to like develop my palate, learn more, and I've been diving into the Houston coffee scene and going to meeting other coffee roasters, meeting like Gary and them here, and like I still don't know like enough to be able to like talk about it as much as some of these people who have been in this industry for like 10, 20 years. However,
Did you say industry or ministry?
industry.
Okay, I heard ministry. Same thing.
Industry,
That's
yeah.
what we're talking. Yeah.
But we, so I have to insert myself into it. Now I have a extra motivation to be doing it right now, and so I go to more cuppings and I continue to learn. And at a certain point, yeah, and you're right. Like those on the other side need to be more accepting of it. But why are we like? I don't know.
Well, I think the other side of that fear is just the society we live in, and like, if I come tell you that this coffee is better than that one, we're not really going to get in an argument, really, like a fight and like how dare you kind of thing, because who cares? Like if you like this coffee or I like that coffee, who cares? But I think people have that fear of talking about faith because since there are different types of faiths, and our society says like, you know. I'm okay, you're okay, like what's right for me, what's right for me, what's right for you, what's right for you. Once you start talking about that kind of thing, then there's a fear of offending, or there's a fear of like, you know, the unknown, or what if they challenge me on this? Again, I don't know enough to answer that.
Well, I think like there's a part of it like when you are convinced that it's the truth, and like you say it's objective truth, there's no other way to like accept it. Like it's either accept it or don't accept it. It's so black and white. And then when you're talking about coffee, like you can't like you can be offended by it, and you can say like, oh my gosh, like you have to try this place, and they could come around and say, oh, I tried it and I hated it. It was like they can tell you all the reasons why they hate it, but then you can come around and say like, oh, I go all the time. Like who did you see? What did you can be like, that's normally not how they are. You should give them a second chance, type of thing. We can become that way.
Yeah.
But like when it comes to faith, we don't even want to I think it goes back to like we don't want to defend it. We don't want to share we don't want to like accept that their experience could be different than ours. And thus that means they have a different opinion about it. And not that opinion like ultimately matters in when it comes to faith and belief. But it, because we want to say that like it doesn't matter your opinion because it's still true. It doesn't matter if you think this coffee is good. Objectively is good. And if you think it's bad, obviously you're wrong. Same thing about like when it comes to like we get in that mindset rather than saying like go back to that beginning of like subjectivity, like trying to help bring them around to see it from our angle and like give them those experiences.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, it's hard. Like, I want people to know and love Jesus Christ and His church and accept Him and like become disciples of Him and ultimately become missionaries. I want all that. We have our work cut out with us for us to be able to bring them those experiences. But that's where I feel like all of us, whether we work in a church or we don't work in a church, we're all called, like if we're a disciple of Christ, we're all called to figure out how we can present Christ in the church around us so that other people can then believe in it. You're not gonna like a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, like you're not going to be able to reach them the same way you're going to reach somebody that's a stay-at-home mom of 4 kids that was raised by atheists. Just not.
Yeah.
Like how you approach them and how you set the terroir, like the earth around them and like the situation is going to be different.
Yeah, and I think that's just the importance of relationship, because you're not going to know.
That's exactly that's why the church is called so much about relational, not just relational, but like accompaniment, like one-on-one, like being with them, because it doesn't even work in a small group. Like it's ultimately about getting to know them as a person and like what motivates them and what excites them. And when you know that, you can know then like, all right, well then, like, have you ever experienced, like, did you know that Jesus did this, or the church like talks about this, and like you're super motivated by like the social justice of the world. You want people to be treated equally. You want people to do all that. And they're like, oh, did you know that the church is at the forefront of all the X, Y, and Z? Oh, I never knew that. Like that, maybe you're in. Or did you know that maybe they're environmentally, like they care about the environment? Did you know that like as Catholics we believe in like not all, like maybe not all Catholics may explicitly say this, but we believe that we should care for the earth. We should take care of like God's creation that because He gave. Like, did you know that? Oh no, like, and that can be like a way that for them to start getting to know it. But like you said, it starts with like relationship and getting to know the person and not generalities.
Yeah.
Sherry Waddell was to say, don't take labels in place of a story. I think that's what she says.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't take labels in place of a story. Like, what is your story? Don't just take a label. Like I did for you when I first saw you with your dreadlocks and like beard, and thinking that you're just trying to be a cool hipster.
Going from 10 creamers in your coffee to working in a coffee shop, getting your single origin, roasting at home, and now you have your own business.
Yeah.
What was the process of that? Like, you know,
Oh, the business part?
What got you to start thinking about selling, the name, and what are your goals? What's the future?
Oh, okay. Victoria and I financially are tight, like more than tight. We're struggling financially, and we know that we need to like increase our income because we can't like as many expenses as we keep on cutting. There's only so far you like.
So much
it's like when you're in the middle of summer in Houston, like you can only take off so many clothes before it's indecent. To like stay cool.
If you're in Austin, you can go a little further.
But like, so we the same, like we couldn't like cut our expenses anymore. Like, well, what are we going to do? And then I came, like I mentioned a couple times to Victoria, like, hey, maybe I'll start selling my coffee. Like, and then she like was like, to me surprisingly was like, yeah, go for it, do it. And to me I was surprised because to me it was such a daunting step because the cost of equipment, the like cost of like, because I knew enough that it's like when you know, like I know just enough to make things like to get in trouble type of thing. Like what is that phrase? You know, I'm just like, oh, are we gonna hear anything now? They're just like,
Speak up a little.
Just speak up a little bit. Okay. Maybe you'll be all drowning out in the back. So I knew enough that I didn't know. I felt like I didn't know enough to do it, do it well, do it right. Because I knew if I was going to do it, I wanted to do it right the first time. I wanted the coffee to be good. I cared about like the environment, and I cared about the families and the growers, and I cared about like the fact that the growers get enough money to provide for the families, and that's only increased as I continue to learn more and more about the coffee industry and producing countries. So I was like, I mean, I just felt so daunting, but it got to the point where it's like, all right, this is the only one that like makes sense, that where it can still be with the family and it has potential to grow without me spending more and more time away. So like, all right, let's just figure it out. So I started like looking into researching like the roasters, like the machine roasters to use, looking into like how, like, can I set it up at home, can I not, like we'll do this and that. And that's when I went and talked to the owner of the coffee shop, Blended, and I was like, hey, I want to pick your brain. I'm really wanting to do this. I'm like, what made you choose this? And like, I'm trying to figure out the cost and everything. And like, in that conversation, he said, well, do you have a place you're going to do it, or a store? I'm like, well, I'm still trying to figure it out. It's like, well, you can store your coffee here, and then if you want, you can rent my machine. Which, when he offered that like took away the upfront capital need. like took away like the need to have like thousands of dollars to get started.
Your own roaster.
Yeah, my own roaster and everything.
Space.
So like it just like, and he had only been there. He hadn't even been there a year yet. So he had just like that coffee shop had just opened up, and he was like doing all like, and I was like, it felt like the Holy Spirit was just moving to say like,
here's a door.
Here's a door. Like I like you presented your obstacles. These are your obstacles. All right. Not only does he, like the owner of the coffee shop, do training, so I did classes with him, so you can learn more about it. But he's allowing you to roast there, so it takes away the financial burden, upfront financial burden, and it allows you to grow it like slowly. And it's like it was a no-brainer at that point. So, as far as the name goes, that is, I talked about like what kind of names, Joe or something like this. Sounds like a bunch of different things, and I knew I wanted it to be like Catholic based. I wanted it to be like, because the faith and my Catholic faith influences everything as far as how I approach coffee and approach consumers and the growers and everything, and families.
How so?
So we care about, like, as a Catholic, like, we should care about the environment, we should care about the earth, like the creation that God gave us. We need to take good care of the creation that God gave us for our future generations and all this. And so that means we need to, like, the coffee like that we drink, if we're drinking like coffee that's produced and they're growing it and like they're cutting down forests to be able to grow coffee there, then it's destroying the earth. So you don't want to be buying that type of coffee. And then on top of that, like, I also care, like, because I'm Catholic, we care about the family. We like the family unit. Like, it needs to be cohesive and try to help everything we can to keep them together. Problem within the coffee is a lot of times the family farms that, like, they start out as family farms, but it's becoming more and more difficult for them to sustain themselves. So the kids end up like not wanting to stay on the farm. They go into the city to get jobs there because they can get more money doing minimum wage jobs in the city versus like staying at the farm, and thus that's the beginning of like the separation of the family and doing that, pulling it apart. So I want to be able to give enough money, be able to buy the coffee, and not only buy the coffee at a higher price so that they can sustain themselves, but help them, kind of like what Gary was saying, is to help them learn how to produce better coffee and more coffee so they can get more money out of it, and thus becomes feasible for the kids to maybe go get more education and then come home to be part of the family. So all of that, like, and all that comes from, like, it's like, if I just wanted to make money and like, I'm going to roast coffee and just make money, buy the cheapest beans, find the easiest, cheapest way to roast it, and sell it for as highest margin as I can get it. That's not how I'm approaching it. I care about, like, I want to do better, and so that's like my faith influences that as far as the company business of Zelie Beans Coffee. So I knew I wanted to have like a faith, like somehow have the faith like influencing the name and everything like that. Our middle daughter is named Zelie, after Saint Zelie, Louis and Zelie, parents of Saint Therese, the little flower, and we named her after Saint Zelie because my wife got very close to her after her first baby, Evelyn, because Victoria struggled with the idea of being a working mother, not being able to nurse and breastfeed as much as she wanted to, and like always feeling guilty for being away because she was like teaching and working. Well, she learned that Saint Zelie, she was not just a working mother, but she had her own business of lace making, and she struggled. She ended up having to send her girls away to wet nurse because she couldn't nurse her kids. So there's a lot of this internal guilt that she had that she dealt with, and Victoria discovered that in reading about her. And I thought that was and it's made sense for us to name our second daughter Zelie. Fast forward, we have Zelie, and she's crawling out, and my wife would always call her Zelie Bear. I started calling her Zelie Bean. And one time I called her Zelie Bean, and it just hit me. I'm like, Zelie Beans Coffee.
Yeah.
Zelie Beans Coffee, that's it. Because like who Zelie was about family, about like it's a struggle to own a business or work as a family and still like be there for your family. That's always gonna be a tension. However, her and Louis figured out a way to do it, that they raised beautiful young women to be like, where one of them's a saint, another one's beatified, they're all on their way to sainthood. It's like, if they can do it, we can do it. So that's where Zelie Beans come from. Like,
Yeah.
so.
That's awesome. So, first, thank you. I mean, this morning I went over and you were roasting.
Yes.
And I went over to watch.
Getting the beans out of the crater, pulling tray.
And I came here. Two things. Why should people buy Zelie Beans? And then how can they do that? How can they contact you?
Zelie Beans, you should buy Zelie Beans because you want to experience better coffee that's better for the world and better for families. And you can do that through the website, zeliebeanscoffee.com.
Yeah.
Zelie, Z-E-L-I-E, Beans, B-E-A-N-S, Coffee, C-O-F-F-E-E.com, zeliebeanscoffee.com. And we have subscription services, so you can schedule it so you receive so much coffee every week, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, depending on which your schedule is on how much coffee you go through. I'm hoping to be, I'm working at a couple other coffee shops. You can actually come to Fix Coffee Bar in Houston right now and get it on the shelves, the Ethiopian. I'm looking at trying to get in some other coffee shops in Houston, so keep you posted on that.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
This is the awkward part where I'm looking at the camera and I'm looking at you and like figuring out what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. I'm here at Fix Coffee Bar with Miriam, who you're actually new here, right?
I am. Well, 3 months.
3 months?
So,
Yeah, sweet.
sort of new.
So I just got done interviewing Jonathan, Joseph. I don't know my friend's name. So what do you think of Fix? Why should people come grab their coffee at Fix?
Well, we have really delicious, locally roasted coffee. We get a lot of the roasters who come in, and we just personally talk to them. Like Joseph, he came in, we talked to him, we tried the coffee. It was really cool. The atmosphere is really nice. It's warm. It's comfortable. The people here are really awesome, really friendly. And then we also have a ton of choices. We have a ton of seasonal drinks and different pour-over options. So, come to Fix.
Yeah, it's awesome. So come on out and make sure you try Joseph's, I'm going to butcher it, Yirgachef?
Yirgachef, you got
Ethiopian?
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sweet. And you can get that as a pour-over, you can get that as a espresso.
We'll switch out our espresso, so sometimes we serve it on that. You can get a latte out of it, flat white, anything you like.
Yeah, and the espresso's so good.
It's good. It really works on espresso. It's really tasty.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Awesome.